Howdy, folks. It's season one, episode one of Woodshop Talk with Charlie and Russ, and very glad to have you here. Gonna jump right into the topic. It's going to be lathes. We're going to do introductions different from the way most people are doing it. We're just going to give name and location, and then I'll have everybody give me their social media links and websites, and we'll put that in the description. But thank you all very much for watching. I'll start from my left. Chris Cute, he's not so much a lathe turner, but he wants to be, and he's also going to be manning our Q&A for us. Thank you very much, Chris, but tell everybody, well, I've already said your name, but just tell everybody what your name is and where you're from.
Hey, Charles, I appreciate you having me on, pal. I am Chris Cute, and I am in Connecticut, so I'm in the Northeast.
All right, and you have no lathe experience except for in high school, you said?
A little bit in high school, and that's about it. I mean, I picked up a lathe one time, and I haven't done it since, so it's been a while.
Absolutely, I appreciate it, Chris. My dad has a Mark V Shopsmith with a lathe thing going on, but I haven't tried it yet. But I look forward to trying that. But that's what this show is going to be about. And Mr. Chris, I'll let you tell everybody your name and where you're from, and then we'll move on to the next batter. Chris Martin, by the way. Well, see, it's funny for me to say name because I have to say your name to get you to say it. So we'll repeat your name and location.
My name is Chris Martin. I'm from Blanchard, Michigan, and yeah.
All right. See, it goes so much quicker. Thank you, Chris the Wheeler. I don't know your actual last name. Forgive me for that.
That's Chris Ahern. I'm from Framingham, Mass, just outside of Boston. Brand new lathe turner. So
awesome. For anybody watching, please know that the reason we're doing this is to make the roll call go quicker. I will put all their social media links and websites in the chat section. And for anybody that's brand new to the Q&A part, where you're watching right now, unless it's on YouTube, Russ is manning YouTube. You can put questions there in the comment section, or you can go to your screen right about here. I think, unless I have it backwards, but it looks like the side of a Rubik's Cube. You click on that, and that is what you click on to ask questions and answers. And I'm going to skip over those two. They told me to skip them. We have Michael Murray. Tell everybody where you're at, because I've already said your name. He goes by, well, tell them what you go by.
Oh, I go by Miter Mike's Woodshop, but yeah, I'm in New Jersey.
Alrighty then. Thank you very much. I know it seems strange for us not to mention the social media because that's so common for these things. I'll go to my co-host last. We have Mr. Shannon Wayne Vargo. Tell everybody about your name and where you're located. Sorry, I'm so used to it myself.
I want to put out some kind of crazy name now, but Shannon Vargo, Sanger, Texas.
Sanger, Texas.
Off today.
All right. Next we have thank you, Shannon. Good friend of mine. We have Sterling Davis.
I'm Sterling Davis from Dallas, North Carolina.
My God, I did not know there was a Dallas, North Carolina.
Well, I just informed you, buddy.
Alrighty then. See, these things are good for something. We have Jason McGinn and Matt Brander. They are somewhere in Canada. I'll let them tell us where they're at.
Eastern Canada, New Brunswick.
That's Jason McGinn that just spoke.
We are in Holcon,
Brunswick.
New Brunswick. Yeah, Canada.
All right, and Matt Brander's the one with a beard, and like I said, all the websites and social media links will be in the description. As you can see, they're very happy to be here.
Hi guys.
How diddly do? Okay, it's Chris. Would you mind thank you everybody in the Q&A for being here and watching. I appreciate it. We have 14 viewers already. Chris, if you wouldn't mind clearing out the Q&A so I can see the questions or you can see the questions as they come in. And if you need help with that, let somebody know. All right. I'm just going to throw this out to the panel. When you first started lathe turning, what was the hardest thing for you to learn when it came to lathe turning? And say your name as you start to talk so I can make sure the camera's on you.
Sterling Davis.
Sterling Davis. There you are. Go, sir.
The hardest thing I learned was when you buy a lathe, you just buy a lathe. There's other things you have to get to come with that if you want to do other things, meaning bowl turning, you need a chuck. You don't have to have a chuck, but the faceplate works, but it's better to have that chuck. You want to turn pins, you got to have a mandrel. You know, the mandrel, and then you have the bushings. So there's different things that you have to acquire to go along with that lathe that I didn't anticipate when I first got it.
Do you think that's what scares a lot of people away from trying it because of all the accessories you got to buy to start it?
I don't think so. I think it's more the lack of knowledge, just like myself. You know, I was gung-ho getting this lathe, you know, inexperienced, not knowing. And some of the accessories you can get are fairly cheap. Some can be very expensive. So if you start out slow and just turn the machine on and use it, it'll grow. You know, it'll come to you and you'll find your niche. But there are some other things that you have to buy just besides a lathe.
Absolutely. There's okay. I'm gonna delete the one last thing in the Q&A. That way it's cleared out. Okay. Anybody else want to say what the hardest thing for you to learn was when it came to the lathe turning when you first started out? Just say your name.
Here, you know, the hardest thing for me originally was when it came to kind of the old school tool, as how to figure out the proper angle of a tack to come in, and as well the proper angle to get the shavings to come off properly. But since I've gotten these new tools, I'm not going to say the company because I don't know if I'm allowed to plug this in the show.
Absolutely.
Okay, easy wood tools. Just the best tools I've ever had in lathe. They are slightly different. It's a little bit different way that you use them than a normal tool, but since I've had them, the difference is just unbelievable.
I've spent a lot of time learning high-speed steel tools and learning how to sharpen them and the feel of them. I'm pretty new to lathe, a year and a half or so, and I had a chance to use these, and holy crap, it's cool. It's like a beautiful feeling compared, like it's a wow.
So you're saying those easy wood tools are they are a lot better than just your standard lathe tools?
Well, I'm not sure if it's just these ones in particular because I've never used a lot of carbon.
Well, they're all carbide
tips.
Yeah,
carbide tips.
It's a tungsten carbide tip. This is the rough and gouge, so it comes with a square tip on the end of it. But the cool thing about it is it has 4 edges, so anytime this does dull, and it should take a long time before it dulls, you can just take the hex screw out of it, rotate it 45 degrees, and put it back in. And now you have a brand new head that you're cutting with.
Oh wow, that's very cool. See, when I first started doing lathe turning, and hopefully there's beginners out there or somebody like me that's never touched one, the idea of, and I'll get to you in just a second, Chris Hearn, or I forgot your last name again. Anyway, the thought of putting a tool up against something that was spinning towards you, it didn't mesh right with my way of thinking. Did anybody think that before they started doing lathe turning? But I'm going to ask Jason that first because I haven't gone to everybody about the hardest thing for you to learn. But Jason, was that a weird premise for you before you started? The thought of going into something that was spinning towards you? Or is it spinning towards you or spinning away from you? I don't remember.
it's spinning towards you.
Yeah, so I mean, was that something that was, for lack of a better word, intimidating to you to feed a tool into something coming towards you?
Actually, no. Wasn't intimidating at all, really. But that was a problem in a way because I was less safe on the lathe at first. I found myself finding a lot of the catching and grabbing, kind of, especially with the cube chisel kind of things, and just trying things and going beyond where I should have looked it up and learned first before I actually tried to do it. I actually bent one of my first tools I had, so I guess I was lucky in a way. But yeah.
Absolutely, that's what I meant by the fact that I've never touched one. That the premise of it spinning towards me that made me think it would always catch. But you know, I guess there's a method to your madness.
Catching is one thing, but the grain ripping apart, it flying in your face is a whole. Like I realized I had I'm turning pens recently, and I had a little piece of pen blank hit me in the face, just in the cheek, and it grazed me. But it went by fast and it hurt. For a small little piece like that, it stung, and I realized, holy crap! I didn't turn anything big after that until I got myself a real mask with a sturdy face, and it's comfortable, and I want to put it in front of my face, because feeling that little piece touch me I was like, well, that's seriously going to hurt me if I even have a thick piece like a couple inches in diameter.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. I'm going to move on. I'm going to call you Chris the Wheeler because that's what I've known you as for so long. But
That's
you
fine.
you held up your hand. What did you want to tell us, sir?
No, my biggest learning curve is to be gentle and approach the spinning piece of wood slowly and cautiously. I've always been a more aggressive kind of guy when anything I do. And the first time I dug in with the lathe, that piece of wood went flying off the handle, and it was airborne, and it came down and caught me right in the top of the head. So
That sounds like I'm not alone in my. I keep using the word fear. I don't know if fear is the word. I know we all respect tools, but it sounds like that's the first bad thing we all went through.
yeah, I said learn to be gentle and approach it slowly and cautiously. First time I dug in, I literally just dug right in, and it was gone. So
Understood.
I've learned a lot since that day, though.
All right, I appreciate it, Chris and Matt Brainerd. Did you already ask? I mean, did you already answer what was the hardest thing for you starting out? Or, and mind you're in the middle of a conversation there, Matt. Matt, you with me? Matt.
No.
What was the hardest thing for you to learn when you first started out?
For me, the hardest thing for me was the table saw course. No, on the lathe. The hardest part of the lathe.
On the lathe. On the lathe.
Are we talking about the table saw here? Yeah, originally on the lathe, the worst problem I did have. We talked about the table. Okay. was of course the traditional tools, the angle of attack to get that best shaving, that the nice curl shaving that flies off over your shoulder. So to find that precise angle of attack and to keep the tools sharp was one of the hardest things that I had a problem with.
That's
and
true.
I've got these new carbide tip tools. You don't have to worry about that anymore.
That's a cool feeling when that stream's flying by you.
Yeah, and you did already answer that. That's my bad. I forgot that I had already asked you that. Sorry. I believe I already asked Michael Murray. Mike, did I already ask you? God, I'm on a roll tonight for the premiere of our new show.
Yeah, it's not a problem, Charles. Hey, the thing that I used to worry about is really keeping the tools sharp, because the proper angle to the gouges to get that sharp, because if you're using a dull tool and you don't realize it's dull and you're just trying to push it to actually cut, bad things can happen. I mean, there's a reason why they give you the diameter of and what the speed is for different things that you're turning, because if you're running a large piece, you're not there's a certain, and if people buy their lathe, they'll have a manual, and it'll tell you what the size diameter is. This is the speed that you should be in the range of, and there's reason for it. Now, I used to always use the traditional pieces. I just recently started turning pens, and I just bought a little carbide set, and those things, like Matt said, it's great. I mean, that thing was just like flying off. The shavings.
Are you on board with everybody else? And okay, if everybody doesn't mind muting themselves, somebody's echoing. Would you be on board with everybody else saying that was the hardest thing for you, to learn how to do it easily rather than dig right in?
Yeah.
And
I would suggest anybody that's getting a lathe, or make sure that the tools are sharp and get a face mask, because a lot of people, like Jason had, just a little piece could come off and it can hurt.
You can take your eye out, most definitely. Yeah, safety is another thing I was going to get to in just a little bit. And by the way, Russ is no longer just a co-host. He is equally an owner of the show as I am. It just happens to be on my channel. So I want to congratulate Russ on that.
I was going to say, and by the way, you forgot to enter.
I did. I go ahead, Russ. I screwed up.
That's all right. It's no big deal.
Tell him
I'm Russ Clarity, the one he forgot.
Yeah.
And I'm from or actually Mulberry, Florida. I even forgot where the heck I'm from. Jeez.
Well, it's rubbing off. Shannon, well, I guess I don't remember if you've even done any turning, but I assume you have. And if so, what was the hardest thing for you to comprehend or learn?
Well, I haven't actually turned yet, but that's you know.
Well, how do you feel about the table saw?
You know, like any other piece of machinery in the shop, it's one of those things where, you know, the first time you fire it up, it's like the first time with a planer. You send your first board through there, you know, you think you know what's going to happen, and if it comes out the other end okay, well, fine. But it'll be the same with the lathe when I first fire it up. There'll be that nervous, you know, with the, you know,
Yeah.
thinking of the tool touching it, let alone. I'm sure it'll be quite comedic the first thing I ever turn. But, you know, you watch guys that have done it, and yeah, that, you know, you'll get comfortable with it like any other tool, I would imagine. So,
Best tip when I was starting.
Like actually starting.
not just starting, but starting.
Exactly.
But only when it's starting.
Yeah.
The best tip that I heard was, and that I tried, and that worked in my mind the best, was starting the tool up on its back and sliding it down into the bevel and slowly hitting the bevel, and then when you hit it, you know, you feel it and you know where that angle is, and you get that feel and you get comfortable with it slowly that way.
It's a magical moment. Starting.
Yeah, starting.
That's when the lights come out. Chris, I'm going to let you catch us up on the Q&A and then tell people what you predict being the scariest part for you. That's what kept you from trying a lathe thus far. But go ahead and get the Q&A first.
Okay, no, I believe it was Donna Presley here says that she, even before she bought a lathe, she took a class at Woodcraft to make sure that she wanted to actually do it to start up as a kind of rather than do you know, lay out the money for a lathe and find out she didn't enjoy it. She went and took a class at Woodcraft and got into lathe work that way, which isn't a bad idea, and it's actually relatively smart.
Absolutely. I'll let you read all of them that way. That way we can.
Well, then we also have Alan Carter, who said the first thing he learned in making a pen is to take off you take off small layers of wood at a time, and you don't just dig in with it. But I think, and forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, Alan, but I think that what you're talking about is the angle of the tool. Now, if you're using a traditional wood turning tool, there's an angle that it needs to be held at in order to be used correctly. The carbide bits that Matt and Jason are talking about, those are actually, you use those on a 90-degree in order to actually use them correctly. But other ones, depending on the bevel of the blade, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but you have an angle that you actually have to rest that tool at in order for it to work correctly.
Well, typical gouges, you want to rub the bevel, otherwise you're going to get catches. Now the easy wood cutters or any of your carbide cutters, they are a scraper typically. So you're just going to protrude them in at 90 degrees, or you can use them as a rub bevel cut too, but that's not how they're designed. They're designed to be used as a scraper.
No, and it's different.
100%.
The different shapes have different uses, and Matt knows best about those.
You should be going in at that 45-degree angle, perfectly straight up. You shouldn't. If you're trying to curve with them, you're looking for trouble.
You were talking about the 3 different tips the other day to me.
Yeah.
You should describe how they work and the difference in them.
Does everybody want to hear about this?
Sure.
Yeah. All right, your straight-up gouge is, of course, a square end tip. Even if you're making a bowl, you still want to come straight in every time on just slightly lower out, and then you're going to come back later with your finishing bowl gouge is perfectly circular, so you can come back in and slowly carve those out circular. Whereas a standard, if you use normal high-speed chisels, you'd be taking a gouge out in each direction, kind of all the way down through it. So whereas this one, you go straight into it. And same thing when it comes to finishing on the other one, it's almost a pointed triangle. So you have a very, very sharp, small, rounded point, but you still have to come in at that 45 angle. If you off-skew yourself sideways or up or down at all, you're looking for trouble when it comes to these carbide tip ones.
Thank you, Matt, very much. Do either one of y'all have a set of tools that towards the end of the show we can say what each tool does and you can show us the tip up close? I mean, you don't have to do that right now, but I'd really like to do that for people like me that are beginners. They can see what each tool looks like and then find out what each tool does, like you were just trying to let us know. I appreciate that. Now, we all talked about pieces exploding. Is digging in too fast? This is for anybody on the panel. Is digging in too fast the only way to make something explode, or is that going? I mean, those of you that have had something explode on the lathe, what causes that besides digging in too much?
Well, not always exploding, but I mean, you could be doing spindle turning and it'd be off center, and you have to speed up too high, and once you hit it, it's going to catch. I've got the first hole in my ceiling from spindle turning, so I mean, there's all different kind of ways that it can come off that lathe, not just by exploding.
Yeah, that there again, me being inexperienced, that's why I was asking that. Anybody else having something exploding or coming apart that?
Sanding
Oh, I
too
didn't.
fast, hairline cracks. There's lots of ways to, come up with scenarios. You just got to use your imagination. The lathe is dangerous just like any other tool. The big thing about lathe turning, you want to stay out of the line of fire best as possible. Gets a little tricky when you come to your sanding, when you need to start sanding your project. And if you're doing interior sanding like a vessel, don't stick your fingers inside the vessel. Get something to attach your sandpaper to them. You don't want to end up with broken fingers or fractures or, things happen.
Now, a vessel would be anything with a hollow interior. I mean, is that a safe assumption when you say vessel? Okay. Russ, feel free to throw any questions out there. I think it's on habit.
I was just going to make a comment. A friend of mine about a year ago gave me a lathe. It's a real old lathe, but it works great. I mean, there's no problems with it. And I spent about 2 or 3 days watching videos. I had never turned anything, and I spent about 2 or 3 days watching videos on YouTube on people turning stuff. And so I know everybody's going to laugh, but I didn't want to spend a lot of money in the beginning, so I went to Harbor Freight and bought their set of lathe tools and brought them back and put them on. Put me a piece of wood on there and proceeded to try to turn. I didn't have any, and it was my very first time. I actually didn't, after watching those videos, I didn't have any really big problems on the first turn. I turned a bat about 2 foot long, maybe a little bit more than 2 foot long, just a plain simple like a baseball bat, and it went relatively easy. I used the tool according, like he's showing. I think that's Chris.
I call him Chris the Wheeler. That's what I've always known him by.
Yeah, Chris the Wheeler. It's very, I mean, almost identical to what he just showed. But anyway, the only thing that I found, and I used the tools that they recommended, like the gouge to bring it down to a certain point and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't really have any problems that time. But I did notice one thing after the third thing I tried. I've only turned 3 things. The third thing I tried to turn was a wooden dowel, and I was using some just cheap old. I think it was fir because it was a piece of 2x4. I cut a piece of 2x4, 1.5 by 1.5, and was going to turn a dowel out of it. And it didn't matter what I did or what tool I used. It just wanted to be real rough and splinter, and I thought I was doing something wrong. But then I talked to a couple of people, and they said, no, sometimes you can get wood that is just absolutely too dry or too just won't work, and it comes apart. So probably what I was doing wasn't wrong. But my point is, I've never turned anything, and I learned a tremendous amount on my very first turning just watching YouTube videos.
The softer woods like pine and cedar do not turn well at all. That's what I found out. I mean, people
this was either pine or fir. It was a piece of 2x4, but so it was either spruce, pine, or fir, one of the two. SPF.
Some woods are really hard to turn, but they're worth it. Like I have palm. It's really hard to get it down to a pen size, sand it, and keep it together because it's such the way the grain is. But if you do, it looks so nice. It's so worth it.
Yeah, and that goes back to I'm trying to think of the right word, the being very religious about or consistent about keeping your tools sharp, because people don't realize how important that is.
It's hard.
Otherwise, they don't work.
That was maybe one of the hardest things about learning the lathe. Actually, now that I think about it, is knowing what sharp is sharp and when I need to sharpen and how to actually sharpen and do that. especially lathe tools, they're a weird shape sometimes.
Well, when you say that, how sharp is sharp? How sharp should a lathe tool be? Should a lathe tool be? Razor blade sharp? Well,
how much wood would Chuck chuck? I don't know.
Yeah. But should it be razor blade sharp or is chisel sharp? I mean,
yeah,
razor blade sharp.
It's not working edge sharp. It's razor blade sharp.
Okay.
Alrighty then.
So if not, it should actually be scary sharp in reality. Tell you the truth.
Okay. That's
Well,
good.
no,
that's good to know because
there's a video called Scary Sharp, and watch the video called Scary Sharp. That's how you should do it.
I really
that's good to know because I did not know that, and I've tried sharpening my own tools, and let me tell you, they're not scary sharp. So hey, you just told me something now. I know what to do.
Exactly.
If you're getting sawdust off your cuts, you're using dull tools. And I know you can be using hardwoods or burls, and which will dull tools, and that's where the easy wood cutters really shine. But yeah, you need to sharpen a lot.
One thing that helped me a lot is on my grinder, I got one of those. It's like a metal bar that comes out, and I put the handle in, and I just turn it. That helps a lot. I want to get the add-on where you can pivot for your hole gouges, and then I'm all set, I think.
The one-way system you're talking about, or are you talking about the berry grind?
I just had a guy who bought.
There's actually a local fellow who made this.
Yeah, he just took some steel and cut it, square steel rods, cut them into, and then made the device and welded it together.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
Complicated.
Oh yeah, it doesn't have to be that complicated, especially once you understand what it's supposed to do.
John Hines has a real nice version of one.
Absolutely. Also, thank you, Chris Martin, for pointing out that that was one way to tell when the tool was dull was the sawdust. That's a good thing to know as a beginner or somebody that's never touched one. Just for the sake
we
of.
Have a comment over from YouTube. Wacky Woodwork said, I have no issue with spinning tools because after using work tools and huge radial arm saws, huge band saws, the size of the lathe we used didn't intimidate me anymore.
Good deal. In the interest of including, and this isn't Chris not doing his job, but anybody that used to follow the scrolling show, we had Mark Stallings was a very lively individual. He's saying hi in the Q&A. Thank you for watching, as well as 18 other viewers. Okay, I'm going to go to Sterling with this only because I see one behind him. Sterling, can you point out what different parts of a lathe are? I know Jason has a Chuck sitting there in front of him, so I'm going to go to him next. But do you want to, for anybody that's never touched a lathe, do you want to point out what parts are what they do? Excuse the dead air, folks. I didn't prepare him for this. I'm going to go ahead and present you to everybody.
That's all good.
I've got this is a Chuck. This is a Nova 2. Basically, I didn't bring the tool, but you just turn it from the sides to open the jaws and close the jaws to be able to mount the wood into it to hold it secure on the one end. I mean, this is tool rest, basically what the tool rides across, and the bevel that's on the back side. For traditional tools, most are slanted to the angle that you want to cut into. Going back to the Easy Wood tools, you want to go in straight in at that 90 degrees because that's just the way it's designed to do, and you're going to get the best cut. You can use it at a slight angle, and again, it's not made to do that way, but for the best cut for the Easy Woods is 90 degrees.
So to say both of those pieces of information are very, very good to know. I appreciate you mentioning that because of the fact that it's got an angle at the top. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
But the as far as the tools go, I've got on my rack here, I actually use the Easy Wood tools myself too. I find them much easier to work with. I have the traditional tools. The thing with the traditional tools is you want to make sure that you've got high-speed steel. you don't want to use something cheaper than high-speed steel because it's going to bend and break on you, and you don't want flying metal, let alone flying wood, around your head.
Yes.
That's
Well,
what I'm saying.
actually, in the chat, if you don't mind me interrupting, is Rob Rawson said that he has a face shield, and he says that's a must. He says, I had a bowl explode in my face the other day while turning it, and pieces that actually exploded out of it stuck into the wood walls of his shop. He says that he didn't feel a thing thanks to the shield he was using, and that led me to a question because I mean we all remember the Norm Abrams wear safety glasses, but that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about a full face shield.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to
Oh yeah, 100%.
don't know what the shield is that they're talking about.
And I would get a face shield that has a full rim on it.
All the way around?
Yeah. They're just a little more protective. There you go.
So it almost looks like a motorcycle helmet, but in the face. It's that well constructed.
Exactly.
I was using one just like that, and after getting, like I said, I got hit with a pen piece in the cheek. As soon as that happened, I didn't touch anything big again until I could buy one of these.
Right.
Stuck right into his cheek like a fucking toothpick.
I realized I wasn't wearing my flimsy face mask, and that would have saved me. But after feeling that small piece, the amount of force and how much it stung.
And I'm not trying to poke fun at it.
I'm not joking around anymore.
If that was your eye, think about it.
Oh,
I mean, it was literally maybe a few inches away from being very catastrophic. So.
Well, I love that shield because I bought a regular shield that. Well, actually, I didn't buy one. I had a regular shield that I use where, like, when I'm using my grinder, I even use to sharpen things. I use a full face shield also on my grinder and different things. But I just don't. The reason I use a full face shield most of the time is I hate goggles. I sweat a lot. They usually get fogged up. I can't use them. At least with a full face shield, I can see through the darn thing to be able to do something. So, but that's a good observation. Is I didn't realize they made them a little bit more sturdier than what they did, Jason.
Well, is the face shield the only safety thing there is, or do you recommend like a thick apron? I'm totally guessing. I've never done lathe turning before, but is there anything? Go ahead.
I'd wear an apron just to keep the sawdust off me. The way it just covers your body.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, at first I used to get in trouble with a wife because I'd walk in the house and I'd leave a trail of sawdust. Because even wipe myself off, I'd still leave. I still end up, a bunch of my shoes and everywhere else. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Mark Stallings, there again is being Mark Stallings says Russell's beard would protect him. That made me. Mark has a way of making me forget what the heck I'm going to say.
I don't know whose it is because I can't think of. I've been sitting here trying to think of it since we're talking about face shields. I've seen somebody's got one that almost it has a fan in the top of it.
Trent Air Shield is what you're talking about.
Anybody know how pricey those things are offhand, or
they were
$419 in American dollars.
How much?
$419.
Wow. $419?
$420? Did you say?
Yep. Close enough.
I have.
Nice.
There's one. I was just at Busy Bee Tools. I don't think you guys have one of those. That's where I got that mask. And there's another one they had an airflow system through it, and it was only $80. Canadian.
Well, Rob Rawson says here that he says, don't use the cheap ones. He says, while because they don't fit well enough, and although they may protect you, more often than not, they'll probably smack you in the face if something flies into it. So the ones that are actually shielded all the way around, like the one that Jason showed, is the one that you really want to go for. And so don't be cheap about your safety when it comes to a label, as far as the face goes.
That's a good fact, because if you go cheap, it becomes uncomfortable, and you don't want to put it on. It doesn't function the way it necessarily should, and it's annoying. So you again don't want to use it. And that's why I didn't have my face mask on, because the other one is so flimsy and annoying. It's in the way. It gets scratched easy because it's a weak little plastic.
And I definitely don't want to lecture, but I guess that would be one of those PSA announcements. You'd rather be uncomfortable with a face shield or uncomfortable with a spear through your cheek kind of thing. I'm not making fun of you by any means, but Jason, while I have you, you have that chuck next to you. Is that what you were pretty proud when you got that, weren't you?
Yeah, that's a Talon chuck from One Way, and that was one thing that was a concept for me that I had to learn about my lathe was first of all, the little how these things go on and what you need for it. Like all a lot of them come with
Insert.
Yeah. And you can change these little jaws out here. You can pick different ones and buy them. I didn't buy any different ones yet, but and just learning how to use it, it's also a different. I mean, I learned a lot of little dangerous things. Putting it on the lathe, chewing it up, and then taking my tailstock off and just working with it with my tailstock off. And why not put my tailstock on and support it? Anyway, a lot of support issues I discovered when I first started learning this thing. And I've had lucky pieces didn't come hit me pretty hard.
Absolutely.
When you're choosing a chuck, you want to make sure you buy the chuck that is fitted to your lathe.
Yes.
Meaning that you can buy a chuck that is 8 pounds and your little lathe really only support the bearings in your little lathe only supports 3 pounds. You know, you'll blow out your bearings within a year. So
yeah, and you also the little screw thing on your headstock. You need to know your teeth per inch.
The threads per inch is another.
Yep. Because you don't want to thread that on a 14 teeth per inch on a 16 teeth per inch, because then you're going to cross thread and, well, that sucks, right?
Yeah.
And most of your common chucks, like the Novas and the Easy chucks, they have inserts that you can put in there to adapt to different lathes. I had to actually buy an insert for this chuck to fit my lathe, and it works well, but the threads fit. And another thing about the chuck too that's pretty neat, that's really a safety feature, is the insert itself. I don't know if you can see it, but it's actually a dovetail on the inside. So when you turn down your tenon, you can turn it down to that shape to where it gives it an extra security from pulling out, so the wood don't come out as easy. So that dovetail tenon is, I think, it's nice.
Thank you for that. I believe Chris Cute was wanting to say something.
Well, I mean, and I'm just asking a real basic question for somebody who, because I'm much like Charles, I have very little experience on lathes, and I've looked into lathes because I would like one, and the lathe tool itself is relatively not expensive to buy, but yet I'm hearing guys talking about $400 face shields, chucks. I mean, if you really want to get into this, and let's just say you want to get into it as a beginner, just to see if you like it, I mean, what's the dollar amount that you probably should be spending? Does anybody have an opinion on that?
I can tell you what I've spent. I've spent right at $500. That's for my lathe and my chuck and my mandrel and some of the tools. So
you have a Harbor Freight, correct?
I have the Harbor Freight. It's the cast steel.
Well, I understand that's a good lathe. I was just, but that was primarily to do pen turning, correct, Sterling?
Well, no. I mean, I bought the larger lathe so I could do a vast. You know, mine actually has a tilting head, so I mean, I've got from the lathe to the floor that I can spin with, which I would never do that. But I'm not limited to just a 12-inch diameter. I can actually tilt the head and turn on the outside of the lathe.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Sterling. Do you have a way of zooming in closer on your lathe so that after I get done, Mark Stalling says Rockler has a trend air shield for $319 that going on prices there. But Sterling, do you have a way of zooming in on your lathe so you can actually point to each part and say what its purpose is?
I don't know how close I can get, but I'll try.
All right, I'm sorry for not giving you prior notice. I just thought of it.
It really is. If you really want a sturdy mask, it's worth checking out. Shipping from Canada for Busy Bee, because I seriously, it was only $80 for Air Force mask. Might not be as like high tech Air Force, but air blowing through and keeping the fog off. So
is that like to keep sawdust out of your face, or comfort, or what would you say that air is for? I'm asking as a beginner.
While you're working, you're getting hot and steam builds up, right? So
No.
breathing and no fog happen.
Yeah, that's the same thing with a dust mask when you're wearing glasses. I cannot stand that. Mike Bolton is watching us. What's up, Mike?
Hi, Mike.
We tried to
What's up?
Mr. Mike. Okay, I'm gonna run on over to Sterling. Yeah, he's pretty darn close. Yeah, Sterling, if you don't mind using something to point and tell us what each part does or its purpose.
Well, I've got a laptop in one hand and a camera in the other, so I can't really point. But
Okay, I will just look through the camera.
basically, this is the tailstocking, and right now I've got a pin chucked up. I got the mandrel in it, and I got a mandrel saver that I use. I don't use a traditional end because it bends the rods, I think. So I got a mandrel saver in the end of it, which pushes on the bushings in the wood versus pushing on the rod. I mean, basically, it's just the motor itself here, which controls the speed.
Headstock.
And then the bottom switch on the bottom controls the headstock. If I want to turn it out facing me, I can turn it, facing directly out to me.
Sterling, it seems like you picked up lathe turning pretty quick as far as how to do what.
Well, I mean, if you watch a lot of videos and do your research, it's really not that difficult. You just have to take it slow. Take slow cuts. Don't go into it rushing. But I mean, the tool rest bed. That's basically the tool rest bed that the tool rest goes into.
Oh, that little hole there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I got my. It's not the best face shield, but it's the half face shield that I use. I keep right there by the side. And then my tools.
Yeah, towards the end of the show, I'm going to run over to Matt and Jason to find out what each tool does. But while I have you, Sterling, Eugene Satterfield is asking, is Harbor Freight a good lathe for a beginner?
Well, it's the only lathe that I've used, so I can't really say if it's better than anything else. I know it's been a great lathe for me to learn on. I can't say anything bad about it because it's done everything I've expected it to do.
Awesome.
Over on YouTube, Rusty Nails has made a comment. He put, I remember in junior high woodshop, a student was turning a bowl and it came out of the lathe and wound up sticking in the door of the wood storage room that was about 15 feet away. Needless to say, that turned us away from wanting to turn anything more on the lathe.
I can only imagine. What does that do? This is for everybody on the panel. What does that do? I don't want to say self-esteem, but what does that do to your creative build-up when you're working on something and you're just this is looking awesome, and then it explodes? What does that do to you? I can imagine.
I like this question.
It blows.
I had something come off because I didn't have the tailstock tightened down 100%. I was in a rush and I just tightened the head so that it was on, but I never locked it. And as I was turning, the whole thing came off. And the next time I went to actually turn, I just went a lot slower and more cautious until you work your fear out.
We should address this because Dan Englewood just said that he has a lathe he hasn't used it yet. And he says, I don't know if y'all are making this less intimidating or scaring the hell out of me. And I think, Dan, and look, I'm not a lathe user, but I mean, I think there's a proper way to use a tool and there's a proper way not to use one. And if you respect the tool, I don't think you have to be worried about it.
Yeah.
I was going to relate when I got my table saw for the first time. And first time using table saw it's very intimidating, but when you get using it and learn it properly and pay attention to what you're supposed to do, you realize it's not hard as long as you pay attention to the right things.
Exactly, and Bob Ross is saying it doesn't bother him too much. And Mike Fulton saying, hello ladies, I like tailstocks.
Well, I know we've got a friend that of ours, Charles and I do, that does a lot of scrolling, but he also does a lot of wood turning. His name's Rick Hutchinson.
Oh yeah.
And Rick Hutchinson turns a tremendous amount of bowls. I'm talking about probably on a daily basis. The man turns 5 to 6 bowls
or more. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe even more, right? And he's constantly putting stuff on YouTube about his bowl turning. And the other day he had one himself explode, but he admittedly said that he thought he got the edges a little too thin, and that's the reason it let go. My point is accidents are accidents, and you can't control every aspect of every tool and everything you do. As far as there could be a piece of wood that has a knot in it or a defect in it, and you don't know it until you get to that defect, and it explodes. So you know, I see the same problems not only with the lathes and things exploding, but I see problems with, like Jason just said, that he was intimidated by a table saw. A lot of people get hurt with the kickback on a table saw. So
yeah. Well, as far as gauging the thickness of the wood, like say you're working on a vase or a deep set bowl, I've seen people use flashlights, and I've seen people use some kind of gauge. What do y'all recommend for a beginner to use to gauge the thickness of a wall? I know the flashlight because I guess they've been doing it long enough that they can tell
If
by
you're
the
using
color.
a flashlight, you're going way too thin as a beginner.
Yeah, as a beginner, most definitely.
So I would use some type of gauge. If you cannot afford a gauge, you can take a welding rod and you can bend it to a shape and it'll hold whatever thickness you want. And a lot of turners do that because they can bend it in funny shapes and get it right down in the bottoms of deep vessels and other things.
That's another very good pointer for an absolute beginner. Just bend something that won't give. But I don't know why I went there, but when you said, I don't even remember. Never mind. I'm doing a live show and I forgot what I was going to say. You said something that it struck me funny. You said anything.
Well, I imagine don't they make kind of like caliper? I want to call them calipers or whatever.
Yeah, calipers.
Yeah, that fits inside of a bowl to tell you the thickness of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they make a tool specifically for that?
Yeah, they're called bowl calipers or verniers.
Okay.
The only reason I say that is when I got prepared when my friend gave me my lathe, and I got prepared to use it, I must have watched 30 or 40 videos of people turning stuff, and including pins, bowls, and whatever, and I saw them, and that's what they were using to judge the thickness of the walls of the bowl was a set of calipers. He would reach up and grab a hold of it. Now, the calipers themselves didn't have a marking on it. What he would do is grab a hold of it and then come back out and use a ruler to see how thick it was.
Well, most new turners are not going to think to buy calipers. That's why I was mentioning the welded rod and those things.
But they should. I mean, especially if you're going to be like turning a dowel that you want to fit a hole, you're going to need a caliper. You're going to need to make sure that it's the right width.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I mean, if you're just going to turn a pin or something like that, where it's not the ends are going to determine how the thickness is where you can see. But if you're going to turn bowls and stuff, I would think it was just be a necessity just as much as any of the other tools.
Okay, Chris the Wheeler looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just grabbed my calipers. It's like a whole set of them for like $9 or $10 at Harbor Freight.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the tool I'd seen used before. I was wondering what that was.
I got a question here from Mike, if you guys want it. And I think he's asking it to more of the experienced turners here. So what's your experience on segmented bowl? I've done a few small ones, but I'm looking to do a larger one soon. And he's talking about maybe like a 100-piece bowl. And some of you guys that are more experienced maybe want to answer that because that's not something I can address.
Yeah.
Well, I think Mike Fold should be on the show and tell what he's done because he's probably done more segmented than most.
I was going to say, I'm not really a segmented turner, but you just need to make your rings, and depending on how many segments you want, what degrees you're going to go with. It's not that difficult. The difficult part is coming up with your patterns.
Absolutely. Mike Fulton, by the way, I did not know you had experience in turning, so I apologize for not trying to contact you. I just flat forgot that you have done turning. And I should have known it because you did the R2D2, I believe, on a lathe. I don't remember. I've slept since then. But I'm going to use what little time we have left to go to Jason and Matt to point out the lathe tools. Wait, let me see if their camera's working here.
Oh yeah, the camera's on.
So just to let you know, my favorite table saw tools are.
All I'm saying is your profile picture is what's concerning me. Hopefully the viewers and everybody else can see.
No, it's his screen's black on my end.
It's
Okay.
black.
Matt and I have seen this in our show, and just keep it. Don't worry about it. Don't even think about it. And when it's recorded, it shows up.
Okay, I'll present y'all to everybody, and we can use y'all to, even if we go a little bit over, we only have 5 minutes, but if we go over, that's fine. If y'all don't mind holding up it as clear as you can to the camera and letting us know what that tool is for and
Okay. Well, first,
what it's called.
First, I'm going to give you.
That's my David Bachuto,
I'm going to
sorry.
give you a disclaimer first because. Not sure why you did this to me, Charlie, but I don't know all these tools that good. I know what I use them for, and I know basically what they are. So let's go for that.
Okay.
This is a roughing gouge. I find they come in different angles on the end, steeper or less steep, and also the bevel being a different angle. It creates a different kind of cut. My other one has a straighter V kind of shape, and I can use the edge as almost a scraper as an angle. So I don't know, I guess it's just getting a feel for the different bowl gouges. I just happen to have two. So.
You also get a lot of them that are far rounder than this. This one is quite steep.
Yeah.
And again, I think it was. Sorry, I think it was. I forget who it was. Chris Martin, I think.
Yes.
Saying how I use high-speed steel. I use the cheap ones, and I was mentioning at the start. I bent one of my tools. It was my roughing gouge. And it wasn't high-speed steel. It caught and it bent because it's a weak steel.
The garbage.
And not only that, these just cut nicer.
You need high-speed steel big, you know.
Now, I just want to clarify, there is different grades of high-speed steel. So
Okay.
Just because you see a package that says high-speed steel doesn't mean it's good quality. So you got to know what you're buying.
That's true.
Interesting.
100%.
Do you know the differences in what to look for? Can you just say it, or is it something you got?
It's not something you can see. It's the Rockwell in the steel. So what will happen is it'll just get dull really quick. But as a new turner, and if you're not comfortable grinding, or not good at grinding at all, I would suggest going to the new edge scrapers or easy wood tools. Whatever you're comfortable calling them as.
Well, actually, you mentioned that. I went to Busy Bee, and they had these. I just happened to get these on Kijiji, like a secondhand online thing, for $50. The Roy Sorby's.
So those
And
Robert Sorby.
Robert Sorby, sorry. And I was at Busy Bee, and they had a Robert Sorby, like one of these, but the single one had an attachment on the end, and you could switch off for all three tools that would normally be carbide tip. It switched off all three in the one tool, which is.
Okay, Jay, I'm going to interrupt you right quick. Mike Fulton is saying there's no picture, no video, but they reassured us that when you see the recorded version, they say the picture shows up, so I'm hoping they're correct in that.
Yeah, and I'll be descriptive too, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
I have other tools where they're finer. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this then.
The metal is sleek and slender.
Maybe I shouldn't be doing this then.
Sterling has the set. He could go through them if people could see his video.
I'm seeing his profile picture as well.
Okay. Well, the smaller ones, I think they're called bowl gouges. I'm not sure, but I use them like the finer tip ones that are more V-shaped. I don't know if you can. Oh yeah, you can't see that.
It's approximately 2/3 of an inch wide.
It's just awkward now.
With about a 17.5 bevel. As it goes down, you can see the gleaming splendor of the light reflect off the bevel.
I apologize to the. I do apologize to the viewers. These are things out of everybody's control.
So,
I'll tell you what. There's basic.
I thought you told me to be specific.
I'll just give a description then. There's basic different
Guys,
tools.
I know I'm watching the YouTube channel, and I hope it records better than what I'm watching because all I'm seeing is just your picture, Jason. It is not coming through.
That's all I'm saying too. But
On our show, it showed up. It doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Oh Lord, I know Jason and Matt. I very much appreciate y'all attempting to do this for us. And sometimes the description works, sometimes it doesn't. Hopefully, people know that we can't control the technology into things So I do want to thank y'all very much for your efforts. Sterling, so I am getting a picture from you now. Would you mind showing tools?
Prize.
I mean, I can show them, but I can't tell you what they are because honestly, I don't know them well enough to do that. I honestly use the Easy Wood tools. I don't use any of the traditional tools anymore. And going back to what Chris Martin said, you get what you paid for when it comes to the steel. High-speed steel, Harbor Freight does have two different types. I bought the high-speed steel. Well, mine still, are dull. They don't work well. I have to sharpen them all the time. So, but I could go to Clean Sports or Woodcraft and pay $8,900 for, a decent one. I've got the carbide tips. I've got one tool that I don't have to sharpen 4 times because all I got to do is turn the blade.
Yeah, and I'm go ahead, Russ.
I got a question real quick about that Easy tool. And the reason I say that is I saw the other day when I was looking at Easy tools, do they make 2 sets, one for regular turning and one for pin turning, or are they both the same fit?
They've got different sizes that they use. They've got a mini that you could use for pin turning. They've got a large set that you could use for big bowl turning, and it's all the length of the handle and the rod.
Okay, that's because the set that I saw, I think, was specifically for a pin turning set. So I did not know there was a difference.
The diameter is slightly different too. I think the pin turning stuff is like a 3/8 inch diameter, and your regular bowl gouges or bigger cutters, they're more like closer to a 1/2 inch.
Yeah, all 3 sets have 3 different sizes of cutters.
Yes, correct.
Cool.
Okay, I'm gonna let if y'all don't mind, we're gonna wind the show down unless Russ has something to say.
No, if you're going to wind it down just before you, so if this is the end, I just want to say this is the first show that we've done of this type, and I appreciate each and every one of y'all being here tonight and helping us out. Personally, I am tickled with the way the show came out tonight. I've only turned 3 things in my entire life, and yet I have learned a tremendous amount of information from everybody on this panel sharing it with us. I'm looking really forward to having more shows like this because I think the new adventure that Charles and I are on is going to turn out really good, and I'm really looking forward to the other shows to learn a lot more. So thanks each and every one of you.
Absolutely. I'll finish up after I go to Chris Cute. Chris Cute, I'll let you catch up in the Q&A, and then I'll address the whole panel and the viewers.
I don't have much left on the Q&A. I have Rob Rawson says he uses his HSS tools. He doesn't have carbide tools yet for turning. And I've got Donna Presley who says that she's had and used a jet lathe for over 10 years and has had no problems with it. So if you're looking for a buying suggestion, there you go.
By golly. I think, like Russ says, I thank each and every one of y'all for being on the show. I know y'all thought I was petrified. I wasn't scared to do this. I just wanted to make it worth watching, and I hope we please some people by at least who we had on the panel, because I know I am very limited on tool experience.
Please, girls, you pleased me.
What was that, James?
If anyone has any more questions about sharpening, I can go into further detail, down the road.
Alrighty, and we can always come back and do another show about lathe turning, because you can never have too many. Edgar Natras is watching, appreciate that. And Mike Fulton says, no offense, better than scrolling, and Mike doesn't scroll, so that, thank you, Mike. No, and
Woodshop.
That just means that Mike doesn't have patience.
Yeah, but Jay, Matt, and Sterling, I want to thank y'all as well as apologize to y'all because I did not warn y'all because it was a thought as it came up about getting y'all to present things.
That's all. Just rolling with things.
Just rolling along, baby. Thank you all for watching, and thank you to every one of y'all for being on the panel. It really means a lot to us. This is Season 1, Episode 1 of Woodshop Talk with... what the hell is it?
Talk, Charlie and...
Present yourself.
Woodshop Talk with Charlie and Russ.
Charlie and Russell.
Good.
Charles, you need to present yourself. You're not doing it.
Oh, yeah, of course not. I don't do that because I've been away from this hangout for so bloody long.
Yeah, the whole time you've been talking, you've been on Jason. I've been trying to tell you.
Yeah, and I just playfully muted them because they do that kind of stuff to me. But anyway, thank you everybody
Still
for
not
watching.
presenting yourself.
Shop talk.
I have the camera on myself. I don't. What do you mean I'm not presenting myself?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
They heard us sing.
You guys are awesome. We love you.
Yeah, we have karaoke with Jay and Matt coming next week. But appreciate everybody watching and
Say goodbye and then hung up.
Thanks for having us.
Girls, say goodbye.
Be kind to one another.
Mute us.
Bye. All right, seriously.
There's it.
okay.
Hurry up, Charles.
Be kind to one another, and y'all keep the sawdust flat.